Friends, if you want to watch super hit movie, The Dark Tower in English, then you must like this video. If you are visiting our channel for the first time, don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Friends, in today's video, the movie we're going to talk about is called The Dark Tower. We will talk about what this movie is and where you can watch it, all the interesting facts about this movie in today's video. I am going to tell you. I am also going to give you all the information on which OTT platform or on which satellite channel you will get to watch this movie. Also, we will talk in detail about the technical department, music department, pre-production, filming, post-production, budget, box office collection of this film. We will also talk about the story of this film, and I will also give you a small review of the story of this film. Apart from this, we will discuss about the facts of this film's storyline, star cast, actors' performance in the film, and which character has played which role. That's why I request you friends to watch this video till the end, so let's start the video. The Dark Tower is a 2017 American neo-Western science fantasy film directed and co-written by Nikolaj Arcel. Loosely based on Stephen King's novel series of the same name, the film stars Idris Elba as Roland Deschain, a gunslinger on a quest to protect the Dark Tower, a mythical structure which supports all realities, while Matthew McConaughey plays his nemesis Walter Paddock, the Man in Black, and Tom Taylor stars as Jake Chambers, a boy who becomes Roland's apprentice. Intended as the first installment in a multimedia franchise, the film combines various elements from the 8-novel series, mostly from the first and third volumes, and takes place in both modern-day New York City and in Midworld, Roland's Old West-style parallel universe. The film also serves as a sequel to the novels. The production of the film was complex and difficult, as production began 10 years before the release of the film. Efforts to adapt the Dark Tower series for the screen started in 2007, with periodic reports and official announcements. The project was then shelved before the rights were transitioned to a different production company. Development experienced starts and stops with various filmmakers and studios at different times, including Universal Pictures, Paramount Pictures, Warner Bros. Pictures, and Lionsgate Entertainment. The adaptation went through 3 major phases of planning, with J.J. Abrams from 2007 to 2009, Ron Howard from 2010 to 2015, and finally the current iteration, announced in March 2015, produced by Sony Pictures Entertainment and Media Rights Capital, 9, with Arcel directing and Howard remaining in a producing role. The Dark Tower premiered at the Museum of Modern Art in New York City on July 31, 2017. And was theatrically released in the United States by Sony Pictures releasing on August 4, 2017. The film grossed $113.2 million worldwide on a $66 million budget and received generally negative reviews, with criticism aimed at its compression of the multiple novels' source material into a single film, though Elba's performance, Hulkenborg's musical score, and the action sequences earned praise. Plot: 11-year-old Jake Chambers experiences visions involving a mysterious warlock, the Man in Black, who seeks to destroy a tower and bring ruin to the universe, while a gunslinger opposes him. Jake's visions are dismissed by his mother, stepfather, and psychiatrists as nightmares resulting from the trauma of his father's death the previous year. At his apartment home in New York City, a group of workers from an alleged psychiatric facility offer to rehabilitate Jake. Recognizing them, from his visions as monsters wearing human skin, Jake flees from them, and they give chase. Jake finds an abandoned house from one of his visions, where he discovers a high-tech portal that leads to a post-apocalyptic landscape called Midworld. In Midworld, Jake encounters the gunslinger, Roland Deschain, who has emerged in his visions. Roland is pursuing Walter Paddock, who has also appeared in Jake's dreams, seeking to kill him as revenge for the murder of his father, Stephen, and other fallen gunslingers. He explains to Jake that for decades, Walter has been abducting children with psychic powers, attempting to use their shine to bring down the Dark Tower, a fabled structure located at the center of the universe. This will allow monstrous beings from the darkness outside to invade and destroy reality. Roland takes Jake to a local village in order to have his visions interpreted by a seer. Having learned of Jake's escape, Walter investigates and discovers from his minion Sayer that Jake has pure shine, enough psychic potential to destroy the Dark Tower single-handedly. Walter kills Jake's stepfather. Then he interrogates his mother about her son's visions. Back in Midworld, the seer determines that the machine is 6 months away on foot, and portal access is restricted to Walter's bases. Jake realizes that Walter has a base in New York that they can use to reach the machine. Suddenly, the Taheen, Walter's minions, attack the village, but Roland kills many of them. Roland and Jake return to Earth, where Roland's injuries are treated at a hospital. Jake learns the location of Walter's base from a homeless man who helped him earlier. When Jake returns home to check in on his mother, he finds her charred remains and breaks down in tears. Seeing this, Roland vows to avenge her death. This leads to him teaching Jake the basics of gunfighting, as well as the gunslinger's creed, which he has not uttered since his own father's death. As Roland replenishes his supply of ammo at a gun store, he's attacked by Walter, who captures Jake and takes him through a portal at his base to a machine that will destroy the Dark Tower with Jake's powers. Jake uses these psychic powers to alert Roland to the portal code that he needs, and Roland battles his way through Walter's henchmen, reopening the portal, which Jake forces to stay open. Walter is forced to return to New York to fight Roland and wounds him. When Jake reminds him of the gunslinger's creed, Roland recovers and kills Walter with a trick shot after a brief fight. Finally, he destroys the machine and saves the Dark Tower, Jake, and the other children. Roland prepares to return to his own world and offers Jake a place by his side as his companion. Jake accepts the offer, and the two head back to Midworld together. Idris Elba as Roland Deschain, the last of the gunslingers. On the choice of Elba, director and co-writer Nikolaj Arcel stated, "For me, it just clicked. He's such a formidable man." He added that he had been an admirer of Elba's since The Wire, and stated, "I had to go to Idris and tell him my vision for the entire journey with Roland and the quartet. We discussed, who is this character? What's he about? What's his quest? What's his psychology? We tried to figure out if we saw the same guy, and we absolutely had all the same ideas and thoughts." He had a unique vision for who Roland would be. Stephen King himself spoke highly of Elba, stating, "I love it. I think he's a terrific actor, one of the best working in the business now." On the character of Roland, King noted, "For me, the character is still the character. It's almost a Sergio Leone character, like The Man with No Name," while remarking, "He can be white or black, it makes no difference to me. I think it opens all kind of exciting possibilities for the backstory, despite Roland specifically being described as white in the books." Elba's performance was one of the few aspects of the film consistently praised by critics. Matthew McConaughey as Walter Paddock, a ruthless, ageless deceiver and sorcerer who seeks to reach the tower and rule over its seemingly infinite kingdoms. On the choice of McConaughey, Arcel stated, "Matthew is an incredible actor who can do anything. That's how I feel about Walter. He could do anything." About the character of Walter Paddock, Arcel added, "He is this timeless sorcerer, and being a Stephen King fan, I've read and experienced Walter in various iterations, making reference to The Stand and The Eyes of the Dragon. He has a very interesting way of seeing the world. He sees it with a sort of delight, even though he is obviously on the wrong side of the light and dark spectrum. He's someone I've been having a lot of fun with." King made mention of him never having a clear image of the character's face, to which he explained, "I never really thought of him, but in the movie, he becomes a character who isn't just a mirage that Roland is chasing. The way things are set up, he's right there." Tom Taylor as Jake Chambers, a young boy whom Roland must call upon to complete his journey, and a son-like figure to Deschain. Taylor got the role after an international search. Claudia Kim as Ara, a seer, Fran Kranz as Pimley, one of Walter's Taheen technicians, Abby Lee as Tirana, another of Walter's Taheen technicians. Catherine Winnick as Laurie, Jake's mother, Nicholas Pauling as Lon, Jake's stepfather Jackie Earl Haley as Sayre, a Taheen, Michael Barbieri as Timmy, Jake's neighbor Eva Kaminsky as Jill, the fake clinic representative sent by Walter to retrieve Jake, Nicholas Hamilton as Lucas Hansen, Jose Zuniga as Dr. Hotchkiss, Dennis Haysbert as Stephen Deschain, Roland's father. Production development and pre-production, J.J. Abrams, 2007-2009. By early February 2007, a film adaptation of the Dark Tower series was in the works. J.J. Abrams, co-creator of the television series Lost, was said to be attached to produce and direct. Carlton Cuse and Damon Lindelof, who co-created Lost with Abrams, optioned The Dark Tower from King for a reported amount of $19, a number that mysteriously recurs throughout the series. According to issue number 923 of Entertainment Weekly, King is an ardent supporter of Lost and trusts Abrams to translate his vision into a film franchise, with Lindelof being the leading candidate to write the screenplay for the first installment. It was around this time that Marvel Comics launched their graphic novel adaptation of The Dark Tower, with The Dark Tower, The Gunslinger Born. Later, in March 2007, Abrams noted in an interview with Wired that the project is something that we are just now talking about with Steven. So it's too early for me to say that we're even officially doing it yet, just because the thing is in the early stages of discussion. A year later, in February 2008, Abrams reiterated that the Dark Tower adaptation was in the early stages of development when interviewed by Reel's channel. When interviewed by AMC in September 2008, Abrams admitted that the project needs time he does not have because of Lost, especially since he would like to see a 7-film series. The 8th novel was published in 2012. However, in May 2009, Abrams stated to IGN that he and Lindelof were planning on beginning work on The Dark Tower as soon as Lost finished its run. Speaking to MTV News around the same time, Lindelof revealed some apprehension regarding the project, noting that his reverence for Stephen King is now getting in the way of what any good writer would do first when they're adapting a book, which is take creative license. In a July 2009 interview with C21 Media, Lindelof revealed that he and Cuse had indeed optioned the rights for The Dark Tower, but said he was wary about committing to such an ambitious project. The idea of taking on something that massive again after having done 6 seasons of Lost is intimidating and slightly frightening, to say the least. With these reservations being voiced by the producers, this initial phase of the project came to an end at the end of 2009 after 3 years, since this was a 3-year option. In an interview with USA Today in October 2009, Damon Lindelof stated, "You'll be hard-pressed to find a huger fan of The Dark Tower than me, but that's probably the reason that I shouldn't be the one to adapt it. After working 6 years on Lost, the last thing I want to do is spend the next 7 years adapting one of my favorite books of all time. I'm such a massive Stephen King fan that I'm terrified of screwing it up. I'd do anything to see those movies written by someone else. My guess is they will get made because they're so incredible. But not by me." Finally, in November 2009, Abrams stated that he would not be adapting the series. During an interview with MTV News, Abrams made the following comments. "The Dark Tower thing is tricky. The truth is that Damon and I are not looking at that right now." Ron Howard and Universal Pictures, 2010 to 2015. In April 2010, 5 months after Abrams revealed he would no longer pursue his adaptation of The Dark Tower, Universal Pictures was set to produce a trilogy of feature films, alternating with 2 seasons of a television series to bridge gaps between the films. The involved parties included Akiva Goldsman, writing the script, Ron Howard directing, and also producing with Brian Grazer and Stephen King. The report was made official by NBC Universal 5 months later via a press release dated September 8, 2010. In an interview with Entertainment Weekly following the announcement, King stated that, "I always thought it would take more than a single movie, but I didn't see this solution coming, i.e., several movies and TV series. It was Ron Howard and Akiva Goldsman's idea. Once it was raised, I thought at once it was the solution." A month later, the first Dark Tower film was scheduled to open on May 17, 2013. In December 2010, Howard offered the following in regards to the project's progress. "It is going well, and it has been incredibly stimulating to work on. I really can't stop thinking about it. We've been meeting and talking, and I've been reading and researching and just kind of living with it. I hope it goes great. I hope it goes the way we think it will. It never does, really. But sometimes it goes better." Despite Howard's enthusiasm, Universal had not yet greenlit the project at that point. By April 2011, Mark Verheiden was joining the television portion of the project as executive producer and Akiva Goldsman's co-writer. The same month, Javier Bardem was cast in the role of Roland. However, just a month later, a report in Variety revealed that Universal may seek another studio's help, as the project's budget appeared to be more than they were willing to handle. The Hollywood Reporter wrote later that the project was on the verge of turnaround, and Warner Bros. Or Columbia Pictures could potentially take the project on, revealing that Universal had paid $5 million for the rights. Shortly after that, Universal committed to a lower budget for the project, and Goldsman began rewriting the script to reflect these changes. Originally, production was slated to begin in September 2011, but in May 2011, it was being pushed back to February 2012 or early spring. The project was still not greenlit by the studio, which had to happen by July 2011. Then, on July 18, 2011, Universal decided to cancel development of the entire project due to budgetary concerns. Despite this, Stephen King was confident Howard would see the project through, stating that he was sorry Universal passed, but not really surprised. I bear them no ill will, and trust Ron Howard to get Roland and his friends before the camera somewhere else. He's very committed to the project. Later, in October 2011, Howard confirmed the adaptation was still on track, noting that HBO would now carry the television portion of the project. By March 2012, Warner Bros. Was expressing interest in taking on the project. Several months later, Goldsman delivered a new script for the first film to Warner Bros., and the studio had to make a decision in August 2012 whether to go ahead with the project. As well, Russell Crowe was being talked about as the lead character. On August 20, 2012, Warner Bros. Officially passed Hopclouds. At the same time, Media Rights Capital (MRC) was in talks to take over the project from Warner. In January 2014, Aaron Paul stated that he had a conversation with Howard and was possibly being considered to play Eddie Dean. Earlier, in October 2012, Paul had tweeted that the role of Eddie Dean was a huge dream of his. Following that, a rumor appeared that Liam Neeson was interested in the part of Roland. Nikolaj Arcel, Media Rights Capital and Sony Pictures, 2015 to 2017. On April 10, 2015, it was announced that Sony Pictures Entertainment with MRC were fast-tracking the project, now with a completely reworked script by Goldsman and Jeff Pinkner. King appeared optimistic, saying, "I'm excited that The Dark Tower is finally going to appear on the screen." Howard appeared to be out as director, but would remain in a producing capacity. By June 2, 2015, Sony was looking to Nikolaj Arcel to direct. Arcel officially signed on July 10, 2015, with he and Anders Thomas Jensen rewriting the script. On August 5, 2015, Sony Pictures Entertainment set the film for a release of January 13, 2017. By November 2015, Matthew McConaughey had been offered the role of the Man in Black, also known as Randall Flagg from The Stand, another role McConaughey had been offered for the 2020 miniseries. McConaughey made between $1 and $1.5 million for his role. In January 2016, it was officially announced that Idris Elba has been cast to play Roland Deschain. By February 18, 2016, Abby Lee had been offered the role of Tirana. On March 1, 2016, Entertainment Weekly confirmed the casting of Idris Elba as Roland and Matthew McConaughey as the Man in Black, with shooting set to begin in South Africa in April. On March 5, Sony announced that the film would move back on the schedule from January 13 to February 17. By March 10, 2016, Tom Taylor had been cast as Jake Chambers. Set design and weapons selection. Idris Elba's character uses weapons similar to the .45 caliber Colt single-action army revolver throughout the film, first produced by Colt Firearms in 1872. Filming and post-production. Filming began on April 12, 2016. Abby Lee, Jackie Earle Haley, and Fran Kranz were added to the cast when filming commenced, while Catherine Winnick and Michael Barbieri joined the film at the end of April 2016, and Claudia Kim was cast as Ara Champignon in May 2016. After poor initial test screenings, Sony contemplated replacing Arcel with a more experienced filmmaker. But instead, producers Ron Howard and Akiva Goldsman advised Arcel on cleaning up the music and narrative of the film. Release originally, the film was scheduled to be released on January 13, 2017, and was pushed back from its original release date to February 17, 2017. In November 2016, the film was pushed back again from February 17, 2017 to July 28, 2017, after the studio's Jumanji, Welcome to the Jungle was moved from that date, 66. In late March 2017, the film was pushed back 1 week from July 28, 2017 to August 4, 2017, switching places with Sony Pictures Animation's The Emoji Movie. Promotion. An unfinished rough cut of the first trailer was leaked online on October 10, 2016, but was later taken down almost all over the internet. On May 3, 2017, a full-length trailer was released. A 1-minute television spot titled Connected Kingdom featured Easter eggs of other Stephen King stories through the interdimensional setting of the titular location, the Dark Tower. Various references included The Shining, 1980, Christine, 1983, Cujo, 1983, Misery, 1990, The Shawshank Redemption, 1994, Carrie and It. Reception box office. The Dark Tower grossed $50.7 million in the United States and Canada and $62.5 million in other territories for a worldwide total of $113.2 million. 3. In North America, The Dark Tower was released alongside the opening of Kidnap, as well as the wide expansion of Detroit, and was projected to gross around $20 million from 3,451 theaters in its opening weekend. It made $1.8 million from Thursday previews at 2,770 theaters, with screenings beginning at 7:19 p.m., as an ode to the 1919 of Stephen King lore present in the book series, and $7.7 million on its first day. The film went on to debut to $19.5 million, dethroning two-time defender Dunkirk as the top film at the box office, although it was the second lowest gross for a film to finish number 1 in all of 2017. In its second weekend, the film dropped 58.9% to $7.9 million, finishing 4th at the box office. Critical response. Critics panned The Dark Tower, calling it boring and flavorless, and incomprehensible to newbies and wildly unfaithful and simplistic to fans of King's books. On Rotten Tomatoes, the film has an approval rating of 15%, based on 279 reviews, with an average rating of 4.110. The website's critical consensus reads, "Go then. There are other Stephen King adaptations than these." On Metacritic, the film has a weighted average score of 34 out of 100, based on 46 critics, indicating generally unfavorable reviews. Audiences polled by CinemaScore gave the film an average grade of B on an A+ to F scale, while Post-Track reported that filmgoers gave a 69% overall positive score and a 43% definite recommend. The Wrap's Dan Callahan was critical of the film's sloppiness and poor editing by saying, "The 95-minute culmination of years-long efforts to bring the Dark Tower to the big screen is a complete disaster, a limp, barely coherent shell of a movie." Mike Ryan of Uproxx also criticized the incoherent plot, writing, "I've been told that the Dark Tower books are jam-packed with dense plot, wonderful characters, and a sprawling mythology, which is what made the movie so hard to make for all these years." Well, the solution seems to have been to just scrap all that and release a shockingly short 95-minute movie that just kind of glosses over everything to the point that has any meaning or purpose. Eric Vespi of Ain't It Cool News praised Elba's performance, but said the actor was let down by the decision to make Roland a supporting character. That puts us in a weird position because Elba's a good Roland in a movie that doesn't allow him to actually embody the character in any meaningful way. He's undercut at every turn. The strongest stuff in the film is when Roland and Jake are bonding. But that relationship is so accelerated that there's no room for an arc. Ignatiy Vishnevetsky of the AV Club maintained that the film was ultimately done in by professionalism. It's a movie that doesn't seem to love itself, sidestepping its innate strangeness. If you're making a movie about weaponized psychic kids, Luciferian wizards, and gun-nut night cowboys from another dimension, and your only goal is to get from Act 1 to Act 3 as efficiently as possible, what's the point? Peter Travers of Rolling Stone described the film as a major misfire, and an unholy mess that shouldn't happen to a king, much less a paying customer. Writing for the Chicago Sun-Times, Richard Roper panned the film, criticizing its cinematography, special effects, and dialogue, referring to it as dull, mediocre, and stilted, while calling Matthew McConaughey's performance as the lead villain terrible, and calling it one of the film's unfortunate elements. Conversely, Aya Romano of Vox wrote that the film's disjointed narrative structure, favoring fast-paced action over exposition and backstory, gave it a basic, wondrous glee that made it feel more like a Stephen King film than any other Stephen King film since Stand By Me, and applauded its faithfulness to King's fictional multiverse, an idea ignored by most adaptations of King's books. Creator responses. In an interview with Vulture, King suggested that the film's critical and commercial failure was due to its compression of the source material and the decision to make the film for a PG-13 rating by toning down the violence of the novels. However, he also defended the film, claiming that screenwriter Goldsman did a terrific job in taking a central part of the book and turning it into what I thought was a pretty good movie. In an appearance on Josh Horwitz's podcast Happy Sad Confused, promoting his film Pavarotti, Howard admitted to being dissatisfied with The Dark Tower, believing that the film was not faithful to its source material due to lacking the novel's horror elements, and by presenting the story as a boy's own adventure, with Jake as the protagonist instead of Roland, he elaborated that, "We always felt like we were kind of holding back something, and I think at the end of the day, it was that." Explaining that these deviations from the books were a sense of maybe too much listening to what you think the marketplace is calling for, instead of really the essence of what Stephen King was giving us. Howard also expressed that the adaptation might have been more successful had it been made as a television series rather than a film. While discussing the future of the franchise with The Hollywood Reporter interviewer James Hibbard, Goldsman said that, "I have a lot of regret about the parts of that didn't work out. Our best version of that existed well before television-movie crossovers and streaming were a thing. I have a lot of affection for the books that didn't end up on screen in the film." And Ron Howard had this idea of what could be done across platforms. He didn't touch the movie, but sometimes things slip away. "There are things about that film I still admire, and Idris Elba played a really wonderful Roland. I think there were too many different points of view, mine included, when it came to figuring out how to tell a cogent story on screen, and we could have done better." Franchise sequel. Prior to the film being panned by critics, there was talk of a possible sequel. In an August 2017 interview with Collider, before the film was released into theaters, King expressed hope for a sequel film in addition to the television series by suggesting that it should be R-rated, have Roland wearing a hat, and include the lobstrosities from The Dark Tower 2, The Drawing of the Three. In a 2017 interview with ComingSoon.net, 3 days after its general release, Arcel confirmed that if a sequel were made, The Drawing of the Three would form the basis of the sequel, and that Eddie and Susanna would appear alongside Elba, McConaughey, Taylor, and Haley, reprising their roles as Roland, Walter, Jake, and Sayre, respectively. By 2019, producer Ron Howard was silent on any discussion of a sequel when he admitted that the film had failed to capture the basis of the Dark Tower source material because they had tried to reduce it to PG-13 rather than the dark R-rated horror story it should have been. At that time, there were still discussions in play regarding a possible television series on Amazon as a way to move forward with adaptations of the Dark Tower novels. Television series. In September 2016, the Dark Tower television series was scheduled to be released in 2018, with Glenn Mazzara as showrunner. Elba and Taylor were set to reprise their roles as Roland and Jake, respectively. The series was intended to provide the backstory of the film, being based on King's The Dark Tower 4, Wizard and Glass, The Dark Tower, The Wind Through the Keyhole, and elements of The Dark Tower, The Gunslinger, with another actor playing young Roland, and Haysbert attached to return as Stephen Deshane. Mazzara said that the series would explore how Walter became the Man in Black and how their rivalry cost Roland everything and everyone he ever loved, though McConaughey did not initially sign on for the series. While discussing the development of the series in the aftermath of the negative critical response to the film, King expressed, "We'll see what happens with that. It would be like a complete reboot, so we'll just have to see." In February 2018, Amazon bought the rights to the series adaptation, though it was not made clear at first if Elba, Taylor, or McConaughey would be involved. It was later confirmed that the series would serve as a reboot, with Sam Strike and Jasper Packanen being cast as Roland Deschain and the Man in Black respectively. In January 2020, it was confirmed Amazon decided not to move forward with the pilot, but that production company MRC was shopping the pilot scripts elsewhere. Stephen King's 8-novel multiverse has been turned into a slice of lean and mean metaphysical action pulp, featuring a stylishly stoic Idris Elba and a magnetically evil Matthew McConaughey. As a critic, I know I'm supposed to do my homework, so let me confess right up front that I did not prepare myself to review The Dark Tower, the droolingly anticipated film version of Stephen King's multiverse novel series, by consuming all 8 books in the series. I had a go at The Gunslinger back in the 80s, my one period of submersion in all things King, but I never followed through on the sequels. And when I learned that the movie version was going to clock in at a mere 95 minutes, I thought, it's clear that the filmmakers have taken the 4,000-plus pages of King's time-tripping, parallel universe-hopping genre mash and compressed them into something that doesn't pretend to be a page-by-page transcription of the novels. As a result, I decided to devote myself to what's up on screen instead of what isn't there. Here's what I saw. The Dark Tower has been plagued by tales of last-minute re-editing and multiple cooks in the kitchen, but the movie that's come out of all this is no shambles. It aims low and hits, sort of. It's a competent and watchable paranoid metaphysical video game that doesn't overstay its welcome, includes some luridly entertaining visual effects, and, it has to be said, summons an emotional impact of close to zero, which in a film like this one isn't necessarily a disadvantage. The movie, which centers on Jake Chambers, Tom Taylor, a teenager with psychic powers who becomes the epicenter of a battle for the fate of Earth, suggests an X-Men installment with exactly one underage mutant, crossed with The Shining, crossed with The Book of Eli, crossed with The Matrix, all wrapped up in enough pow, pow, blam, blam, to leave viewers who don't even know who Stephen King is feeling like they've gotten their money's worth. A few of the concepts drifting through the film suggest how far ahead of the curve King was. A few play as flagrantly derivative, but when you watch The Dark Tower, you may not bother to separate the Kingian from the Jungian from the ready-made for DVR-ian. It all fuses into a glittering trash pile of déjà vu action pulp. Jake, a kid from New York, is consumed by spooky visions of another world that he's compelled to sketch into drawings. They include images of a mechanistic volcano, of human beings with fake skin, and of a glowering man in black and a hero known as the Gunslinger. Jake's visions are all real, but everyone thinks he's seeing things, including his mother, Catherine Winnick, who arranges to send him to a psychiatric retreat. But one of its workers has the seared skin out of Jake's nightmares. So Jake escapes, finding his way to a crumbling house in Brooklyn, where he goes through a portal that looks like a 70s Spielberg light show. He emerges in a rocky wilderness known as Mid-World. And it's there that he meets the gunslinger Roland Deschain, Idris Elba, a stoic avenger in a frayed leather trenchcoat whose mission is to protect the Dark Tower, a force of cosmic good that's been around since the start of time. The gunslinger's nemesis, the Man in Black, Matthew McConaughey, is out to destroy the tower, and if he's allowed to do so, the universe will collapse. The Man in Black operates out of that sinister volcano, a medieval sci-fi lair where he places gifted children in a head-locking matrix chair that sucks out their energy to destroy the tower, or something. And what pulls you into the movie is McConaughey's spiffy portrayal of evil with a dry ice leer. Sauntering around in spiky jet black hair, he looks like the dark brother of Siegfried and Roy, crossed with the world's most lean and mean Elvis impersonator. Yet what makes the Man in Black nifty campy scary is the ominous nonchalance with which McConaughey imposes his power, commanding people to kill themselves on a whim. Stop breathing. He snaps at Jake's icky stepfather, and the dude does and dies. McConaughey makes the man in black a neatly purposeful demon, a roving executioner with style. For a while, Idris Elba seems a little blank by comparison, but that's just because the gunslinger is biding his time. He's got a deeply personal beef with the man in black, who killed his father, Dennis Haysbert, and he's a broken but unbowed cowboy knight, with a pistol forged from metal right out of Excalibur. You're all but waiting for the moment when he travels with Jake through a portal back to Earth, a place that believes in bullets. In Manhattan, Elba's recessive cool blossoms into badass swagger, and the protector/kid bonding takes. Tom Taylor is a good young actor who radiates tensile anxiety, even though he looks like he's going to grow up into John Bon Jovi. Jake has been graced with the gift of seeing all, but he still has lessons to learn. Like the proverbial one taught by the gunslinger, he who shoots with his hand has forgotten the face of his father. This translates, roughly, as, "May the force be with your ass-kicking." The man in black fled across the desert, and the gunslinger followed. With that great opening line, an obsession began for millions of readers of Stephen King's series of books that would eventually be known as The Dark Tower. The first book was actually called The Gunslinger, and it was a relatively small volume of brilliant sci-fi fantasy that used iconic imagery to begin the crafting of a world that would become as rich as those created by George R.R. Martin or J.R.R. Tolkien. Over the next few books, The Drawing of the Three, The Wastelands, and Wizard and Glass, King did some of his best writing. The series would actually stretch to 7 books and a series of comics, but it's the initial quartet that holds a special place in my heart. I only mention all of this to place the failure of the long-delayed The Dark Tower in the right perspective. This isn't just a mediocre movie, although it is most definitely that. It is a wasted opportunity to fulfill the promise of that opening line from 35 years ago. Plagued by reshoots and dogged by rumors of poor test screenings, The Dark Tower once looked like it would be one of the more notable failures of 2017. Honestly, I kind of wish it was. As is, it's more forgettable than loathsome. The kind of movie that occasionally rubs salt in your wounds by reminding you what could have been, but mostly just dissipates from memory as it's playing. The two leads here, Idris Elba and Matthew McConaughey, work just fine in these iconic roles, and you just want to pick them up and put them in a better movie, one that doesn't seem stuck in the valley between trying to satisfy hardcore fans of the series and the moviegoers who have never heard of Roland and Walter. By trying to do both, the movie ends up doing neither. The problems start immediately. Someone probably thought that making Roland, the title character of the first book, the lead of the first film, wouldn't satisfy a wide enough demographic. And Hollywood is obsessed with stories of teenagers who discover their bad dreams or hidden secrets are actually the keys to the salvation of the universe. So, instead of the origin story of Roland, which will apparently now be told in a television series, also starring Elba, our protagonist here is really Jake Chambers, Tom Taylor, an essential character in the books reimagined here as a troubled New York teen without much of a real personality. As with almost everyone in this film, he's a device, a way to push the exposition forward to meet a contractually mandated running time. Here's what we learn about the movie version of Jake, who's basically like the kid reading the Reverend, in that he constantly tries to explain to the audience what's going on. Jake has prophetic visions of both the gunslinger Roland, Elba, and the man in black Walter, McConaughey. He also has visions of a massive tower, which we learn is basically keeping the order of the universe. Walter wants to destroy this tower, and he knows that there's a child out there with the power to help him do so. Of course, that child is Jake, who it turns out has the same power as the young man at the center of The Shining. He can read minds and other such things that Walter will harness to blow up the tower. The Dark Tower is filled with references for King nuts, including, among others, a moment where Roland glances behind a pinup poster while looking for an exit, The Shawshank Redemption, and the numbers 1408 above a portal. Did I mention the portals? I got distracted. It's easy to do so with this movie. Roland, Walter, and eventually Jake cross between worlds through portals. It's not long before Jake and Roland team up, but Jake questions whether or not his new gun-toting pal is going to help him save the tower, or if he just wants vengeance against the man in black. A few other characters flit around the fringe of this thin piece of storytelling, but it's essentially a 3-character piece. And 2 of those characters are actually pretty well defined. Elba brings a nice gravity to Roland that fits the character well. A combination of a man haunted by the ghosts of his past and driven to do what's right to avenge them. And McConaughey dances on the edge of hamming it up in the villain role, reining it in just enough that one can see how well he could have been utilized with a better script and vision for the project, because that's where this tower crumbles. The Dark Tower is hollow. It is soulless. It is a film that never quite figured out what it wanted to be, and so elected to be nothing much at all. Worst of all, it's clearly been chopped up by those reported reshoots and test screening edits. There's a scene with a demon in a house that just ends, and much of the final act material features a Jake who looks a lot closer to puberty than when the movie began. Weird, humorous bits feel like they have been spliced in, trying to find as big an audience as possible. And while some may criticize Stephen King's more populist works, that's a charge that could never be lobbied at the Dark Tower. These books had vision. They created worlds. They used iconic imagery to explore timeless themes. The Dark Tower plays it so safe and takes so few risks that its greatest sin is in being the one thing those formative books never were for so many people. Directed by Nikolaj, screenplay by A. Goldsman, Jeff Pinkner, Anders Thomas Jensen, Nikolaj Arcel, produced by A.K. Goldsman, Ron Howard, Erica Huggins, Stelba, Matthew McConaughey, Tom Taylor, Claudia Kim, Fran Z. Jackie, Earl Haley, cinematography Rasmus V. Beated by Edward Beld, Dan Zimmerman, music by Tom Hoken, Borg Production Company, Columbia Pictures, Imagine Entertainment, Weed Road Pictures, distributed by Sony Pictures, release dates July 31, 2017 in Museum of Modern Art, August 4, 27 in United States, running time 95 minutes, country United States, language English, budget $66 million, box office $13.2 million. So guys, this is their view of the Dark Tower movie and some information about it. How do you like our today's video? Please let us know by commenting, and if you like this video, please like it, share it, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Thanks for watching.